The ID card bounced off the marble floor with a sharp sound that echoed throughout the lobby of Sterling Financial Bank. Anderson, Mitchell, senior manager of the institution, had literally thrown the ID card of a 60-year-old black man on the floor as if it were a trash. "I'm sorry, but documents like these inspire confidence," Anderson said with a dismissive smile, adjusting his Italian tie as he watched the man bend down to pick up his ID. "Perhaps you'd be better off looking for a bank more suited to your profile." Roberto Silva remained crouched for a few seconds, holding the document with steady hands that did not tremble even for an instant. At 60, he had the posture of someone who had weathered storms far worse than the arrogance of a young executive. When Hess stood up, his eyes met Anderson's with a disturbing serenity. The scene had caught the attention of other customers in the bank. An elegant lady whispered something to her husband, discreetly pointing in Roberto's direction. Two executives in suits stopped talking to watch the awkwardness of others. The silence in their room was so thick that even the sound off air conditioning seemed amplified. "You understand perfectly," replied Roberto, his calm voice contrasting with the explicit contempt he had just suffered. "Just came to make a simple transaction, but I realize that perhaps this is not the right time." Anderson rolled his eyes and turned to Paula, his assistant, who had watched the whole scene with obvious discomfort. "It's always like this with these kinds of people," he muttered loud enough to be heard. "They think they can just walk in here without understanding how things work." Roberto Silva was not just any man, although his modest appearance suggested otherwise. There was something in his gaze, a calmness that only exists in those who carry powerful secrets and know exactly when to reveal them. His gray hair was well combed, his work-worn hands told stories of decades of dedication, and his upright posture revealed an unshakable dignity. What was most intriguing about Roberto's reaction was his complete lack of surprise. It was as if he had expected exactly this kind of treatment, as if he already had a plan for dealing with situations like this. "May I ask what brought you here?" asked Paula, trying to ease the tension created by her boss. Her voice trembled slightly as if she sensed that something was not right about the situation. "I wanted to open a business account," Roberto replied simply. "My daughter mentioned that you for specialized services for large corporations." Let out a sarcastic laugh. "Large corporations, really?" He looked Roberto up and down once more. "Listen, Mr. Silva, that it perhaps you don't understand the profile of our clients. We're talking about million-dollar contracts, international partnerships, complex investments." Anderson didn't know was that Roberto hadn't arrived there by chance. Over the past 3 months, his daughter had repeatedly mentioned the name of that bank during family gatherings. "We're closing a huge partnership with Sterling Financial. Dead $5 billion. It's the biggest contract in our company's history." While Anderson continued his condescending speech about professional utility and institutional standards, Roberto discreetly observed the bank's comings and goings. Well-dressed clients were greeted with warm smiles, and gourmet coffee executives in expensive suits were escorted directly to private offices. The difference in treatment was not subtle, it was glaring and systematic. "I understand your position," Roberto said, gently interrupting Anderson's monologue. Ended. "Large corporations require partners wore up to the task." Something in Roberto's tone made Anderson pause for a moment. There was a certainty in that sentence that didn't match the humiliation he had just suffered, but the manager quickly dismissed any concern. Standing in the revolving door, Robert did something Anderson would never have expected. Instead of walking out defeated and humiliated, he took out his cell phone and typed a quick message. "Camilla, I need to talk to you about Sterling Financial. It's urgent." The reply came within seconds. "Is there a problem?" "I'm just reviewing the final contracts with them." Roberto typed again. "Let's just say I had an interesting experience with customer service. Can we talk tonight, sir?" "Dad, are you okay?" Roberto glanced down last time at Anderson, who was now serving a blonde customer in a gray suit with almost obsequious reverence. A discreet smile formed at the corner of his mouth. "Some people are about to discover that Underestimating people based on their ID cards can cost them much more than they imagine. As he walked down the sunny sidewalk, Roberto showed neither anger nor sadness, just the tranquility of someone who had just witnessed exactly what he expected to witness, as if that humiliation were merely confirmation of a suspicion he had harbored for months. If this story offered Judas disguised as professionalistic your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple gesture of contempt would turn into the most spectacular fall the corporate world has ever witnessed. Dandard Mitchell couldn't resist the temptation to turn Roberto's humiliation to entertainment for his colleagues during lunch at the executive restaurant on the 20th floor. He recounted the story for the third time, gesturing theatrically as he imitated the supposedly humble voice of the old man. You should have seen the look on his face when I threw the document on Theffler. Anderson laughed, cutting into his grilled salmon. He tried to keep his dignity, but we all know how it is. These people always think they can walk into anywhere. Paula, his assistant, stirred her salad uncomfortably. Anderson, maybe he really did have a company. You didn't even check, Paula, honey. Anderson interrupted condescendingly. I've been in this business for 8 years. I know a real client when I see one. That man didn't even have a gold credit card. The other managers laughed, but something in Anderson's overly loud tone suggested that he was trying to convince himself as much as the others. There was something about the man's calm demeanor that bothered him more than he cared to admit. Besides, Anderson continued sipping his white wine. It was a favor for him, imagining how embarrassing it would have been if he had tried to open an account and found out he didn't even have the minimum deposit. I saved everyone time. What Anderson didn't know was that at that very moment Roberto was sitting in his daughter's kitchen, leafing through contracts that would make the arrogant manager swallow every contemptuous word had uttered. Dad, you look worried, Camila observed, pouring fresh coffee into a cup that cost more than Anderson's monthly salary. What happened to Dad? Sterling Financial. Roberto sighed, choosing his words carefully. Let's just say I had an enlightening experience about how they treat certain people. Why do you mean? The manager, Anderson Mitchell, from what I saw on his badge, wasn't exactly welcoming. In fact, he was clear about the type of client he considered suitable for the bank. Kamala frowned. Anderson Mitchell, she knew that name from the internal reports she had received during the negotiations. A senior manager who would be responsible for a significant part of the implementation of the partnership that was about to revolutionize both companies. Dad, do you want to tell me exactly what happened? Roberto told her everything from the moment he walked into the bank to the moment his ID card bounced off the cold marble floor. As he spoke, he saw his daughter's expression gradually change from concern to something much more dangerous. Camilla was known in the corporate world for her calculating coldness. When Simeon had respected her, he threw your ID on the floor. Camilla's voice was strangely calm, kind of calm that pressed as of vasting storms, like it was trash. Daughter, but don't worry, I've been through worse. And he had. Roberto Silva had built his first company from the rubble of the discrimination he had suffered in the 1980s when no bank would finance his dream of a construction company. He sold everything. He had worked 20 hours a day and built low-income houses with his own hands until he could hire his first employees at 60. He had sold that company for a fortune that few knew about. His money was quietly invested in investment funds spread across 3 countries, but his modest appearance had never revealed the 8-digit fortune he had accumulated through decades of relentless work. No. Daughter, it was interesting to observe how the bank works, especially consider the partnership you are entering into with them. Camilla nodded slowly, her eyes taking on that dangerous column Roberto had known since she was ackled. $5 billion, Dad. It's the biggest contract in our company's history. I wonder how they would react if they knew that the inappropriate old man they humiliated today is the father of the CEO, who is about to make them the most profitable bank in the region. While Anderson dined at an expensive restaurant that evening, celebrating her day of maintaining the standards of Sterling Financial, he posted on LinkedIn about the importance of maintaining strict quality criteria in customer service. His colleagues' comments praised His dedication to excellence. What he didn't know was that Roberto was in a video call with his daughter Shri. Senior partners being introduced as an informal advisor and strategic mentor. I want you to meet my father. Camila said on the screen, Roberto Silva, me informal advisor and the wisest man. Ickno. Roberto waved at the camera, Heis expression. Serene, masking the plans that were beginning to form in Heis' experienced mind. He had spent decades building empires. From nothing, taking down the career of an arrogant manager will be almost recreational. Nice to meet you. Roberto said calmly. Camila told me about the partnership with Sterling. Financial, how interesting. During the ensuing conversation, Robert tosked seemingly innocent questions about Meline's key contacts of the bank and contract cancellation procedures. Information. Any concerned parent would ask for information and experience, said Stratus. Would file away carefully for future use out of curiosity, Robert tosked casually. What is the bank's policy on discrimination? I imagine a company of our size requires partners with solid values. The partners looked at each other. That's an excellent question, Mr. Silva. We'll include that in final review of the contracts. While Anderson slept peacefully in his penthouse, convinced that he had kept undesirables away once again, Robert stayed up late reviewing every detail of billion-dollar partnership. His daughter was about to sign for a moment when he bowed his head in the face-off insults that morning. Everyone at Febank thought they had broken his spirit, but those who know true strength know that it grows precisely in silence, fueled by injustice, and is about to manifest itself in ways that will turn humiliation into revenge and arrogance into eternal regret. 3 days after the humiliation at the bank, Roberto woke up before dawn and did something he hadn't in years. He put on his only Hugo Boss suit, which had been hanging in his closet since he sold his first company. This was no time to appear modest. It was time to remember who he really was. Dad, are you sure about this? Asked Camila, reviewing the documents scattered across the conference room table for the 10th time. Once we cancel, there's no turning back. $5 billion, Dad, that's almost half the company's annual revenue. Roberto adjusted his shirt cuffs and smiled. Daughter, I've learned one thing building companies. Money can recover dignity once lost. Takes decades to regain. The table was covered with contracts, termination clauses, and financial reports. Camila had spent the night with her legal team mapping out every comma that would allow the partnership to be canceled without significant legal penalties. Clause 17 allows for unilateral termination in the event of discriminatory practices by the financial institution, explained Drenrique Mora, a senior lawyer with a firm for 15 years. We'll need concrete evidence of it to me, Roberto said, calmly sliding a folder across the table. Inside was something that made even the experienced lawyer gulp: printouts of Anderson Mitchell's LinkedIn activity from the past 2 years, subtly prejudiced posts about quality standards, and cultural fit comments on articles about corporate diversity that revealed his discriminatory mindset. Likes on questionable content. My God, murmured Dromora. How did you get this when you're 60 years old and have been building companies since you were 20? You learned that information is power. Robert played Anderson. Mitchell isn't just arrogant, he's careless. While the Silva family planned meticulously, Anderson Mitchell enjoyed what he believed to be their victorious week. He had posted on LinkedIn about an excellent quarter off growth and received dozens of compliments from colleagues. His latest achievement had been rejecting 3 unsuitable candidates for corporate ticans. Some people don't understand that we maintain high standards here, he commented to Paula during the coffee break. It's a matter of preserving Febank's reputation. Paula had become increasingly uncomfortable with her boss's comments, especially after the incident with Roberto Anderson. Have you ever thought that maybe we're being too selective? Paula, honey, you're still new to this business. Over time you develop an instinct for recognizing who really belongs here. What Anderson didn't know is that at that very moment, Roberto was being welcomed as a VIP at his daughter's company headquarters. The receptionist greeted him as Mr. Silva, strategic advisor, and employees Stop discreetly to greet him in the hallways, Dad. Meet Marcus Thompson, our chief financial officer, said Camilla, guiding Roberto to a meeting room with a panoramic view of the city. Mark extended his hand with the respect reserved for major investors. Mr. Silva, it's an honor to finally meet you. Camilla always talks about your business acumen. During the meeting that followed, Roberto demonstrated why he had built and sold companies for decades. His questions were precise, his analysis was surgical, and his suggestions revealed a sharp strategic mind. Marcus, what would be the financial impact if we had to cancel partnership with Sterling Financial? Roberto asked casually. It would be significant but not catastrophic, Marcus replied. After consulting his reports, we have other banking options that have expressed interest in similar partnerships. Commonwealth National, for example, has offered even better terms. Camilla and Roberto exchanged glances. Everything was falling into place. There's something else you should know, Roberto said, his voice taking on a more serious tone. I've done some research on Anderson Mitchell. This man isn't just occasionally prejudiced. It's systematic. Slid over printouts of internal emails leaked by a disgruntled former Sterling Financial employee, messages in which Anderson referred to Latin clients as cultural risks and questioned statistical reliability of black entrepreneurs. This is unbelievable, Marcus whispered. If this leaks to the public, it won't leak, Roberto interpreted, because we're going to use it much more intelligently. Meanwhile, Anderson was having lunch at his favorite restaurant, posting photos of his gourmet meal on Instagram with a #executive life in the comments. Colleagues praised his good taste and inviolable lifestyle. He had no idea fate every post, every comment, every public display of arrogance was being carefully archived by Roberto's team. Dad, are you sure you want to go through with this? Asked Kama, seeing the relentless determination in the eyes of the man who had taught her that dignity is not negotiable. Daughter, that man humiliated me because he thought I wasn't significant. Tomorrow he'll find out that some people are much more important than they appeared to be. That night, while Anderson slept peacefully dreaming of his next promotion, Roberto remained awake, finalizing what would be the most spectacular downfall the Raleigh banking sector had ever witnessed. The gun was loaded, the target was in his sights, and Anderson Mitchell had no idea that he had chosen the wrong opponent to underestimate. For a moment, when he threw that ID card on the floor, Anderson thought he was demonstrating his power, but those who know true power know that it doesn't need to be flaunted. It simply acts at the right moment, devastatingly and irreversibly. The next morning, Roberto woke up at 5 o'clock and put on his Hugo Boss suit again. Today it wouldn't just be his father who was humiliated, it would be the man who would teach Anderson Mitchell that underestimating pill can cost $5 billion. Are you absolutely sure you want to do this? Asked Dr. Moa for the 10th time. Reviewing termination documents once signed, there's no turning back. Doctor, my father taught me that dignity is priceless and $5 billion won't buy the respect they denied him. Meanwhile, Anderson arrived at Sterling Financial beaming. He had received a message from management informing him of an urgent meeting with strategic partner scheduled for 10 o'clock in the morning. In his arrogant mind, it could only mean one thing: his promotion had finally arrived. Allah have my desk polished and prepareth special coffee. Anderson ordered, adjusting the gold tie he reserved for important occasions. Today is the day my career takes off. At 9:45, Anderson was in his office organizing the last details when when Paula appeared at the door, her face visibly pale. Anderson is April the Silva family is here for the meeting. Silva. Anderson frowned. I don't know any Silvas important enough for strategic meeting sits. It's the man from yesterday, the one you. Paula swallowed hard. He's with a woman who introduced herself as the CEO. Coleman Industries. Anderson's blood instantly turned to icy. Coleman Industries, the $5 billion company, the one that would make his career, the one whose contract was being finalized that week. Impossible, Anderson muttered, but his hands were already shaking as he searched for information. The computer. Roberto Silva. The search returned a result that made Anderson almost faint. Roberto Silva, 60 years old, retired. Businessman father of Coleman Industries CEO Camilla Silva estimated net worth $120 million. No, Anderson repeated like a mantra as hurried through the corridors toward the main meeting room. When he opened the door, the scene he found confirmed his worst nightmare. Roberto was sitting calmly at the main table wearing some impeccable suit that contrasted brutally with the simple clothes he had worn the day before. At his side was an elegant woman in her 40s, unmistakably thorough and professional. Mr. Mitchell, Camilla Silva said in an icy voice, I believe you already meet my father. Roberto Silva. Anderson tried to force a smile, but his legs were shaking visibly. Silva, there was a misunderstanding. I didn't know that I was important. Roberto interrupted calmly. Interesting. I thought Sterling Financial treated all clients with respect regardless of appearance. The regional director, Michael Thompson, arrived running, clearly upset. Miss Silva, I apologize for any inconvenience. Would you please step out? Siddiqui, Camilla said, opening an elegant briefcase. We would like Mr. Mitchell to stay. After all, he was the one who helped us make a very important decision. Anderson felt sweat trickle down his back. What decision? Roberto smiled certainly. The decision to cancel our $5 billion partnership with Sterling Financial. The silence in the room was deafening. Michael Thompson looked as if had been punched in the stomach. Camilla, we can work this out. Anderson will be disciplined, I promise you. Michael. Roberto spoke with the authority of someone who had built empires. When your company throws a client's identity in the floor like trash, you're not just disrespecting a person, you're revealing your corporate culture. Anderson desperately tried to defend himself. Silva, I was protecting the bank from possible fraud. It's standard procedure. Procedure. Camilla slid a series of printouts across the table. These are screenshots of your LinkedIn from fellas 2 years. Mr. Mitchell posts about maintaining proper standards and filtering out inappropriate clientele. It seems your bias wasn't an isolated accident. The evidence was devastatingly racist. Comments like on discriminatory content, a complete digital history of systematic prejudice that was taken out of context. Anderson stammered. Just like it was taken out of context when you threw my father's ID on the floor. Camilla's voice was dangerously calm. Michael Thompson tried to salvage what he could. Ms. Silva can fire Anderson immediately. The bank does not condone this behavior. It's too late. Michael. Roberto stood up, his presence dominating the room. Yesterday, you humiliated me. I was just a customer. Today I am the father of the CEO you just lost. Anderson collapsed into his chair, reality finally hitting him. $5 billion, his career, his reputational destroyed by a few seconds of arrogance. Please, he whispered. I didn't know I can change. I can. Yesterday you knew exactly who I was. Roberto replied with unshakable dignity. A human being who deserved basic respect. That was all you needed to know. As father and daughter prepared to leave, Roberto paused at the door and turned to Anderson. One last time, do you know what difference is between us? Anderson, you judged me by my appearance. I judged you by your character, and I found that of the two of us, only one had anything of value to offer. The doors to the room closed, leaving Anderson alone with furicage of his career. Outside, employees whispered in the hallways the news of the cancellation of the largest partnership in the bank's history was already spreading like wildfire. At that moment, Anderson realized that some people carry a silent power that only reveals itself when underestimated. Those who confuse arrogance with intelligence, and the true strength doesn't need to announce itself. It simply acts when necessary in a devastating and irreversible way. 2 weeks after the meeting that would change everything, Anderson Mitchell cleaned his desk for the last time. His dismissal had been immediate and without negotiation. 8 years of his career at Sterling Financial now boiled down to a cardboard box and contemptuous looks from his former colleagues in the hallways. Did you really think you could treat clients like that and get away with it? Paula now promoted to his former position watched with a mixture of pity and poetic justice. Roberto Silva was literally the father of the biggest client in the bank's history. What made it worse for Anderson was discovering that his humiliation had gone Viral internally employees shared the story in WhatsApp groups, always ending with the same phrase, "Never judge." A book by its cover meanwhile. Roberto and Camila signed an even bigger partnership with Commonwealth National Bank, $2,300,000,000 more than Sterling Financial's original offer. The director of Commonwealth, impressed by the Silva family's history of integrity, had offered preferential terms. Mr. Silva said Marcus Chun, president of Commonwealth National, "It is an honor to work with a family that values dignity above profit. That is rare in the corporate world." Roberto smiled serenely. Marcus, "I've learned that true partners are those who respect you at the first handshake." Note: after learning about your net worth. News of the cancellation of the billion-dollar partnership spread throughout the financial sector. Like wildfire, Anderson discovered in the worst possible way that his reputation had been destroyed not only at Sterling Financial but throughout the rally market. 3 months later he was still unemployed. Every interview ended the same way. "Oh, you're Anderson, who lost the $5 billion contract, thanks, but will pass any day," while drinking coffee alone in a cheap cafe. Anderson saw Roberto enter the establishment. The man who had humiliated him was wearing simple clothes again, but now Anderson knew exactly who was standing before him. Roberto ordered his coffee, paid politely, and as he passed Anderson's table, he paused briefly. "Good morning, Anderson. How's the job search going?" Anderson swallowed hard. "Mr. Silva, I'd like to apologize. I didn't know." Anderson, Roberto interrupted gently, "You knew exactly what you needed to know, that I was a human being who deserved basic respect. Of everything else was irrelevant, but I can change. I can learn." Roberto nodded. "I sincerely hope you can, because if the next person you judge by their appearance may have a daughter even more powerful than mine." With that, Roberto calmly walked out, leaving Anderson alone with a bitter reality that some lessons come too late to save a career destroyed by one's own hands. 6 months later, Coleman Industries had grown 40%, driven by its partnership with Commonwealth National. Roberto, officially hired as a strategic consultant for his daughter's company, used his office to mentor young entrepreneurs facing discrimination in the market. "Dad, you turned humiliation to growth for hundreds of people," said Camila, watching Roberto mentor a young black entrepreneur who had been rejected by 3 banks. "Daughter, I've discovered that the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so great that they realize how small they were." Sterling Financial never fully recovered from the loss. The story became a case study in business schools about how prejudice can cost billions. Anderson became a symbol of everything that is wrong with discriminatory customer service. Paula, now a regional manager, implemented a diversity and inclusion program that became a model for other banks. On the wall of her office she kept a framed quote, "Respect first, ask questions later." A year later, Roberto was invited to speak at the National Banking Convention on the importance of universal respect in customer service. When he took the stage, he spotted Anderson in the audience, now working as an insurance salesman, a shadow of the arrogant executive he once was. "Ladies and gentlemen," Roberto began his speech, "today I'm going to tell you how 5 seconds of disrespect cost a financial institution $5 billion. Anderson hung his head, knowing that history would be told once again, but this time as an example of what never to do. Roberto ended his speech with a reflection that echoed throughout the convention. The difference between dignified treatment and discrimination is not in the wealth of the person standing in front of you. It's in the character of the person serving them." Ash stepped off the stage to warm applause. Roberto realized that he had turned his humiliation into a lesson that would change the way thousands of professionals would treat their customers from then on. That ID card thrown on the floor had not broken his dignity, had revealed the moral fragility of those who believe that power is measured by the ability to humiliate others. Anderson tried to destroy Roberto but ended up destroying himself. Roberto learned that true revenge is not to repay the damages suffered. It is to achieve the success that his enemies could never imagine. If the story of justice and transformation touch your heart. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that the best response to prejudice is success built with dignity and intelligence.